So this is a website policy used typically for your external facing or public facing website. You will put your domain name here and thereafter refer to it as the website. And it basically describes, what personal information you collect, and the types of information you may collect from your users, and your data handling practices. So the policy, as you can see, applies to information on the website, email or text. If you're using mobile or desktop applications, you can delete these if you're not using them. But basically, any way you collect, use, or disclose information, you'll note that in the earlier sections. Right? If you're using third-party plugins, those types of things, then you will need to leave this clause in. What's also very important is what the policy does not apply to. So it does not apply to information that's collected offline. Let's say that would be governed by something else. Sometimes you may be collecting information by a third party. That's not relevant to your public-facing website privacy policy. And then you'll have a note around the fact that you may have to change your website policy from time to time. So any business will typically want to collect some personal information to identify you. So personal information is about an identifiable individual, and these will include the email address or telephone number, IP address. Make sure you have a sense of the other personal information your website collects. And also very important is what is regarded as non-personal information, because if it's non-personal information, it's not governed by privacy legislation, and you can use it without obtaining consent. Right? So non-personal information is important, and then you have a definition of technical information, and then non-personal details about your website interactions, which is very useful for analytics purposes. Again, you can use that information without consent from the user. In this paragraph, you'll provide information on how you collect information from users. So you may collect it from direct interaction, that's the first way, through user contributions, through automation or interactions, and then other publicly available sources. Users, depending on how your site functions, may provide their information by filling in a form or posting material, responding to a survey, for example. You will delete or include these as appropriate. This information is around cookies and automated data collection technologies. So most websites will track the users for behavioral, for online behavioral advertising, and so you need to put, you need to state that it's not necessarily a problem. You have to state it within your policy, right? You can also provide information around how to opt out of online tracking, and there's a link to the Digital Advertising Alliance or other opt-out tool that you may be aware of that you'll include here, or you can simply delete that. And this is why you may be collecting, doing analytics. So, for example, to estimate your audience size or usage patterns, to speed up research, speed up searches, and then you're stating something around, what automatic data collection is included here. So things maybe that you may be using are cookies or flash cookies, and web beacons, for example. If you're not using them, simply delete the paragraph. This is how you're using the information provided by individuals. So, for example, you may be presenting, the website and its contents, provide you with information about products or services that you request, and then fulfill the purposes for which they have been described when the individual provided their personal information. So this is disclosure of information. So you need to state, in broad terms, who you may be disclosing your customer information to. So, for example, subsidiaries or affiliates. If you are purchased or acquired by another company, there's usually a disclosure of information there. There's information around advertisers or advertising networks. You don't have to put all this information in. I've simply left it here for completion. If you see a square bracket like this, you can simply delete this whole thing and it wouldn't change the sense for you. So it's likely that you're dealing with contractors or other service providers, and you need a clause to transfer personal information for that, for uses relating to your business. And this clause speaks to that, allowing you to transfer personal information to contractors and other service providers. It's a good idea to provide as much choice as you can to users around how they are advertised to, or whether or not they can refuse browser or cookies. That is increasingly becoming a requirement. It's not currently, but maybe in the future. And then you'll write a note in broad terms. You don't have to get very specific here because you don't want to give away any attack vectors for your website. But you need to specify that you're using data security to protect their personal information. There's a clause also on data retention. It's a good idea to not be having websites to children under the age of 13. Minors have a greater level of protection associated with their personal information. That's something you probably need to speak to a lawyer about if you're going to be making your services available to minors. If there is, you need to provide a mechanism to allow for individuals to access and correct their personal information. And you can do that in a number of different ways, typically through the person updating their profile, for example, or providing an email address, let's say here, for the individual to contact. It is important to allow for the withdrawal of consent in certain circumstances for the transfer of personal information. And then a note on what happens if you're changing your privacy policy. Lastly, you'll need to put your contact information. You don't necessarily have to name a person. You can just put privacy officer and an email address and a number to call, for example. But an email address and a privacy officer, as long as it can, that address is checked, and your privacy officer will respond. And that's it for your privacy policy.